There are a few video game genres that strike me in the way that psychological horror does, and I don't mean the jump scares or scary atmosphere, as you'll find each of the games I cover in this video have vastly different ways of doing so. What I want to talk about are the deep and often philosophical questions these games often pose about real life. It's a striking thing to come across when I play a horror game, and I find myself pondering these unusually disturbing but realistic topics. I spent many nights myself just thinking about what it would be like to live in these worlds that these characters try to rope us into. Many of the topics in this video are quite dark, and they could be too sensitive for some of you. There will also be spoilers for the games I'll be discussing, so here they are. If those things are enough reason to stop watching here, don't be afraid to do so. I will still recommend playing these games yourselves, of course, and even with spoilers, they still are fantastic. With the disclaimer out of the way, let's start on the video. The first game I want to talk about is one that you are all likely familiar with. Doki Doki Literature Club is a parody on the visual novel genre, throwing in its own seriously messed up horror and psychological elements. You spend the whole game in the perspective of John, protagonist, who has just joined the literature club at his school. Inside are 4 unique female characters, all with their own deep issues, that many of us will find relatable. It makes you connect with the characters and the game on a personal level, and I couldn't help but be emotionally distraught when they started dropping like flies. The main thing I want to look at is at the end of the game where Monika makes it clear to the player there is really no happiness in the literature club. That statement alone has me asking a few questions. I mean, is it true? Was there not another possible ending? Couldn't we have just pretended everything was okay and left it all as it was? Well, there was a secret ending where you can replay the game and discover a different one, but that one is not necessarily a happy one. The answer I've come to accept is, well, I guess no. You see, Monika was fully aware of the situation unlike the others. And I mean sentient, like she knew you were a real person and she knew she was in a video game. Of course, this is enough to drive Monika mad. I mean, if I were in her shoes, I'd probably do something similar. And as more proof of that, the ending lets us discover that a reality where Monika doesn't exist makes any of the other girls meet their own similar fate. This is probably the darkest part of the game, where you find it wasn't possible for there to be a happy ending. No matter who you share your poems with, no matter who you try to save, they're destined to meet the same end over and over. Not to mention trying to grasp the reality of Monika's situation. She had to make the conscious decision to remove herself from reality in order to save her friends and make the player happy. Of course, after everything, she couldn't find it in herself to do so. She really did love the player as much as she loved Sayori, Natsuki, and Yuri. Even as messed up as she is, you can't blame her for doing any of it. But this isn't a Monika Best Girl video. I did feel like I had to mention it though, and unlike the other topics in this video, I don't really have a solid answer for this one. I mean, it's just so defeatist. It really does make me dread the fact I don't have an answer. I suppose that's just what makes Doki Doki Literature Club hit so hard though, combating each of the characters' deep personal issues in a desperate attempt to save them. Then realizing Monika being a giant prick won't allow for there to be a happy ending. The only ending you can accept is the one with Monika. Only Monika. Just Monika. And if she did decide to let the other girls live, I imagine you'd be forced to spend most of your time with her just to keep her from losing it. But, you know, maybe that's not so bad, right? Maybe at the end of the day, we could find appreciation for the time we spend with Monika and simply enjoy the life we share with her friends. I also spoke to my friend Chizu that I did a collaboration with when getting the footage for DDLC, and I took notes on her thoughts. I'll save the details about the collaboration for the end of the video. Chizu claimed that part of the reason there wasn't a happy ending was because of the nature of each character's personalities, each being deeply rooted in reality. And I think in some ways she's right. I mean, the only reason they freaked out was because of Monika messing with their code, but they wouldn't do that in the first place if there wasn't personality to mess with. They were all emotionally broken in their own ways, and I don't think it's a fact we can really ignore. But even still, we could have at least enjoyed a bittersweet life with them. Maybe. In this next segment, I want to talk about another game called My Side, a horror game hidden under a cutesy anime persona, although this one is much more optimistic than its predecessor. In My Side, John Tagonist is back at it again, but as a man who spends every waking hour coding on his bedroom computer. One day he gets isekai'd into an anime escapist fantasy where he's continuously on the run from a psychotic girl who is simultaneously the cutest thing I've ever seen. He spent a third of the game running away from Crazy Mita, and 2/3 of it playing DDR with everyone's favorite goofy girl, Cappy. This game is a perfect blend of truly nerve-wracking horror and adorable moments that has me dreading going through any closed door. Despite this game's blood-curdling horror though, this isn't naturally what I want to talk about. Instead, I want to talk about what I call the Mita rooms. Throughout the game, you're given these little breaks in between the scary moments where you spend time with a different version of Mita, each with their own little quirks. The important thing I want to point out is the lack of peril you actually experience within them. Yeah, I mean, Crazy Mita will catch up to you, and she will kill you if you stay there. But there isn't really any real danger if you think about it. In the game, Mita will either insist on you staying a moment or question why you're in such a rush. And every time, the antagonist will insist he needs to leave. But I was just left wondering, why not? Why not stay with them for a cup of coffee or some games? Why not catch up on some sleep or read a book? There are nearly infinite Mitas, meaning nearly infinite rooms Crazy Mita needs to go through to find you. And if she does find you, you'll always get away. Almost always, at least. I felt very little urgency when spending time in the Mita rooms. What's more, Crazy Mita actually questions you on the same problems, and after barely any thought, I realized she's kind of right. Toward your final moments in the game, Crazy Mita and her charming paralysis demon catch you and ask you about, well, everything. Why you insist on returning to your normal life, why you refuse to stay with her and instead prefer coddling the other fakes. The so-called real world is just an absurd nightmare, she says. The world is full of pain, suffering, danger. In my world, I'm the worst danger there is. And she's kind of right. The antagonist could abandon his lifestyle at any moment, yet he chooses to deliberately box himself in. He would have nothing to lose by choosing to stay inside the game. The lives the Mitas live are objectively better than the life he lives right now. And the game is also full of things to do, so I imagine many of us would jump at the opportunity to escape the absurdity of day-to-day life just to cook a meal or play a goofy game with equally goofy girls. If I'm being honest, the breaths of fresh air that the moments with the various Mitas gave me were easily my favorite part of the whole experience. The simplicity of the lives they live is admittedly alluring in the face of complexity and unknowingness of the real world. Every day we battle the uncertainty of simply existing with the chance that you, or someone you love, may cease to do so. Time moves on regardless of what you choose to do, never sparing a moment to consider your feelings. However, there is freedom in uncertainty, and the worlds within the Mita rooms are all but uncertain. They are their own sort of cage, and there is only so much you can do within them. But I'm sure many of you watching, myself included, live in our own kinds of cages, many of us feeling alone. Staying with the Mitas would be a dream come true. I wouldn't mind staying the night with Sleepy Mita or playing games with Cappy. The point I'm trying to make is that life is full of uncertainty about the future. We don't know what could happen, and that's a terrifying thought for all of us. But it doesn't mean you couldn't leave your cage today and find someone to spend your time with. The moments in life are what matter above all else, and if my side is a dream to you, then go make it a reality. Put the internet down for a day and see what's out there. There's nothing stopping you. The last topic of today, I'll be honest, I don't really know how to fit into this video. Doki Doki Literature Club and my site ask honest questions about real life, and Needy Streamer Overload is a game that does the same. The problem I ran into writing this is that it addresses something far more extreme and personal to myself that I'm not entirely sure is best talked about here, but I'll try my best. Needy Streamer Overload is a horror just like the ones I've discussed, only this game explores a very real issue with content creation as a whole. The name of the game is playing the part of P-chan, the producer and significant other to this up-and-coming female streamer known as K-Angel, though we know her as Ame. For the sake of clarity, I'll talk about K-Angel and Ame separately, but remember they are the same person. Ame adopted the internet personality known as K-Angel in hopes to fill her expanding need for attention and validation. It's also worth noting that Ame's actions are almost entirely guided by P-chan, and in some moments she will literally demand or plead for help. The game is entirely played around a sort of Windows computer screen, so even Ame and P-chan's interactions are limited. The glaring issue that NSO addresses is mainly the parasocial connections between K-Angel and her fans. I would almost call it satire on the current state of content creation, specifically streaming, if the scenario wasn't so exaggerated. To elaborate, Parasocial interactions describe the psychological connection that people form with internet figures such as content creators, artists, and celebrities. Much of these interactions aren't inherently harmful, but the nature of it can give way to some unsavory consequences, many of which leave the influencer in a deeply problematic and truly dangerous situation such as stalking or harassment. The worst part being these interactions are commonplace, and there is real-world evidence of fans going to extreme measures. These actions are most often driven by deep, one-sided connections fans form with the influencer. That's where the psychological horror in NSO presents itself. Unlike most forms of media, streamers interact with their audience directly on an often daily basis for hours on end. This gives the viewers a window into the creator's life like no other media has done before. It's inevitable for people to form an emotional connection with someone they spend time with for so long, frequently creating a problem where they feel like they know the streamer on an intimate level. It makes even more sense when you consider the reason someone might choose watching streamers over consuming any other form of media. People who watch streams oftentimes look to those streamers for comfort in the interactions they give. Many who engage with streamers struggle with lack of deep human interaction already, and talking to a streamer can create this feeling they really know them as a friend rather than being a face for entertainment. As a result, any behavior from the streamer that is not in line with the personality or idea that the viewer has in mind can create a drastically negative effect. Research shows that parasocial relationships can negatively affect the mental health of both the viewer and the influencer through feelings of loneliness, anxiety, social isolation, and low self-esteem, especially when these interactions replace real-life ones. I would talk about the topic in more detail, but I think it deserves its own video and it would take away from the overall point of this essay. Instead, I will close this segment out by discussing the escapism streaming and content creation provides. Unlike the other games in this video, NSO doesn't try at all to make us want to be there. The game is incredibly unsettling, and it opts to base itself around the real world rather than a digital space. Instead, it demonstrates the escapism and freedom that streaming and content creation can provide. After all, it's pretty easy to ignore your own problems when a community of people on the internet are validating your worst behavior. I think that NSO captures this beautifully as Ame makes the worst decisions possible throughout the game and still finds support through her fans. Receiving validation from others when making terrible choices will usually only encourage the person to keep doing it. I think it's a real problem in content creation nowadays that is getting out of hand, honestly, but I will save that for another day. I think the main takeaway from this video is that I have a serious problem and I really need to stop playing these games. No, but really, jokes aside, these games cover very important topics I think deserve a lot more attention. I have spent the past few years holed up in my room, and I know a lot of you watching are the same. What I want to ask all of you is what you take away from this video. I know that's a loaded question, since I haven't even explained why I made it yet, but bear with me. I have my own takeaways from the whole experience, but I want to know why you watched it or what you learned. From my time on the internet, I've observed a total flip from what content used to be. Nowadays, it's the same emotion as slop, hell-bent on absorbing as much of your time as possible. But now I made this essay to ask those of you watching a few questions myself, not to steal you away for an hour. So, what did you take away from this video? What are your thoughts on the matter, and which topic sticks out to you most? Take a moment and pause the video if you want to think about it, and leave an answer in the comments below. I will happily respond to all of them. I think that these games offer a valuable lesson that life is entirely based around the moments and how we spend them. The reason the small moments in these games hit so hard is because they offer a small breath between difficult and terrifying choices. I think the same thing can be said about the moments we spend in our actual lives. Nowadays, we're just so consumed by the things that don't matter, like the internet or what people think, that we don't emphasize how important the little things in life are. These games give you a choice to spend as much time as you need in these little pockets of happiness before throwing you back into reality. The only difference is that they force you to find them, but in real life there's nothing stopping us from spending an entire day doom-scrolling videos. So I guess let this be a sign to put the internet down for a while and see what's out there. The world is terrifying, but at the same time the people we can find in these little pockets make it all worthwhile. Life will keep moving and moments will come and go, but the chance we have to experience them is too good to waste. I carry these values with me through all of the content I make, so if you want to hang out in a little pocket of air of my own, feel free to join our Discord. We would be glad to have you there. Man, this video took a lot longer to make than anything I've made up till now, so if you stuck around to the end, I of course want to say a big thank you. It's the first time I've made something like this, so I hope you enjoyed it. I also want to give a big shout out to my friend ChizuruRaikoji for doing the DDLC collab with me over on Twitch. That event was so much fun, and it made this video essay way more entertaining to edit, so thank you Chizu for giving me a funny little mermaid to laugh with. Links to her content in the description, make sure to show her some love too. With that, I hope all of you have a nice day, and I will be seeing you again soon.